All right, welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying Tanya. We're in the last section of Tanya called Igeret Hakodesh, and tonight we are studying chapter 20, Chap. Now, Chap happens to be, chapter 20, a very, very powerful section of Tanya, a powerful chapter of Tanya, and that is because here you're going to learn something totally new, totally revolutionary that we've never discussed so far in Tanya. And matter of fact, the previous Rebbe writes that when the Hasidim start to study this chapter of Tanya, it created within them a whole new excitement in doing mitzvot. Why? Because it shows you in a very, very deep and Kabbalistic way the way mitzvot in the physical world is created, is connected to the Ein Sof, the most powerful light that exists by God, is specifically found where? In the physical world, and specifically in doing mitzvot. In other words, like this, just to give you an introduction to appreciate what we're going to be learning tonight, revolutionary. And if you really take this to heart and you really get this, it will change your whole perspective of physical mitzvot and our avoda in this world. And that is as follows. In the first chapter, in the first section of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe discusses what's the reason why we do mitzvot. Why do we do mitzvot? In other words, life is great, right? There's finer qualities. There's meditation, there's prayer, there's love, there's awe. You think about every mitzvah, the dynamics of every mitzvah. You take something physical, and it becomes a mitzvah. Take, for example, a mezuzah. You think on a simple level, it's a piece of parchment from a hide from an animal with ink, and you put it on a physical door, and that's a mitzvah. Or, for example, you take tefillin, which is also hide from an animal with parchment, and you put it on everything, that's a mitzvah. Or you keep kosher, physical food, and this is kosher, this isn't kosher. So, what did we learn in the first part of Tanya? Because God wanted a dir b'tachtonim. In other words, the premise there is that the truth is meditation is, whoa, it's much more spiritual. Prayer is more spiritual. Learning Torah, wow, it's much more spiritual. But for some reason, God wanted a mitzvah in this world. In other words, if not for God, that God didn't want, we wouldn't be excited about it. And again, that's a good enough reason to do it. Yeah. And that was the premise we've always learned, and that's throughout mysticism, that's the general idea behind mitzvot. Over here, the Alter Rebbe introduced something totally different. And that is that the infinite light of God, where is it specifically found? Not in meditation, not in love, not in awe, and maybe not even in simcha, but even though that's all important, but where is the infinite light of God found specifically? In mitzvot, in the physical world. So that is a revolutionary idea, because what Alter Rebbe is teaching us is it's not that we're doing a mitzvah because that's God's will. No. In the mitzvah, the most powerful part of God is there. So if you want to connect to the most powerful, infinite part of God, guess what? Do a mitzvah. So it's not like you're putting on tefillin or you're keeping kosher or any other mitzvah, the 613 commandments. I'm doing it because really I'd rather do something else, but God wants me to do this. No. I'm doing this because by doing this, I'm connecting to the infinite part of God. So it creates a whole different excitement in doing mitzvot. It's not a means to an end. No, it's here, right there. The end is right there. That is the message of this chapter. But in order to get there, we're going to go on a Kabbalistic journey. It starts with a very, very deep Kabbalistic journey. And the truth is we can spend probably days, weeks, and months, and years in this chapter of Tanya. A lot of heavy Kabbalah.
Do I have to call home and tell them I'm going to be late?
No. The goal is to keep you here, to keep you to
make a succinct. Okay.
Yes, the goal is to give you
a taste.
A taste. Let's be honest. We can call it a taste, an outline of what talks about in this chapter. And obviously, if you want to continue the journey in this chapter, 100% you can spend literally days, hours, months, and years. It's a very, very powerful chapter. A lot of heavy Kabbalah in here, and each one of these items we could talk about obviously for hours, etc. All right, so let's get into the chapter. So the Alter Rebbe begins with a piece from the Zohar. What does the Zohar say? The Zohar says like this, and I'll quote: "Ihu referring to God. V'chiהו chad, איהו וגרמיהו chad. So what does that mean? The Alter Rebbe explains that we know that there are 4 worlds. 4 worlds. What does it mean there are 4 worlds? I'll name them, and again we'll go through it briefly because I'm telling you we can spend a long time in this chapter. There's the world of Atzilut, which is the closest to God. It's called Eitz, comes from the word of Eitz, so close to God. It goes outside of the infinite light. Then there's the world of Bria, creation. Then there's the world of Yetzira, of formation. And there's the world of Siya, of what? Of the world of action. So the Zohar says...
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Between Atzilut and God.
There's levels. There's levels. I'm telling you. That's what I'm saying.
Verify that someone said it. I didn't.
Yes, there are levels. There's levels. There's levels. But again, I'm telling you, we can talk about this class forever.
Okay.
My goal is to give you a complete package tonight. We can at least have a good outline and some depth, and then at your free time you can go, diving into these Kabbalistic ideas. But all right, we're going to go a little diving tonight, but not too deep. We didn't bring the best life jackets to go that deep. And so, all right. Anyway, so איהו וחיהו. So what does the Alter Rebbe say? That Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. In every world, there's a 10 Sefirot. Now, this 10 Sefirot is made up of a light and a vessel. Like if you want to have water, you need a water and you need a cup. A cup without water, you don't have water, and water without a cup, you're not going to be able to drink it. So you need both. So every one of the Sefirot, starting with, depending which one we're starting from, whether it's starting from Keser, starting from Chachma, down to Malchut, every one of these Sefirot have 2 components to it. There's the light and there's the vessel. Now, so the Zohar is saying is that in the world of Atzilut, God and the light of the Sefirot and God and the vessel of the Sefirot are one. Unlike in the world of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, where the light is the light and the vessel is the vessel. The light is connected to the infinite part of God, and the vessel is connected more to the finite part of God. Think about it. The water is light, it's infinite. The vessel contains it. So in every world, the light is more flowing, and the vessel is what contains it. It packages it up. And it's not one is bad and good. You need both of them. You need the light, but you need the container. Because without one and the other, you're not going to have a balanced structure. Now, but in Atzilut, we're saying is that God is one with the light and God is one with the vessel. So the question is asked, a very simple question. We know God's infinite. Oir ein sof. By definition, what is a vessel? It's finite. Think about what a vessel is. A vessel finite or infinite? It's finite. So let's even say in the world of Atzilut, wow, it's so heavy. The light is very, very heavy, but it's still a finite. So what do you mean when the Zohar says איהו וחיהו chad? We get it. But what does it mean איהו וגרמיהו chad? So the Alter Rebbe explains it doesn't mean literally that the infinite light and the vessel is one, because then why is it called a vessel? Why is it called infinite light? But what it means is that the infinite light partners with the vessel. They become a partner in order to create yesh me'ayin. So in other words, it doesn't mean that the infinite light and the vessel is the same thing. Infinite light is infinite light. The vessel is the vessel. And even though, again, it's the world of Atzilut, it's a whole different level, but the fact is that what it means to say that's one, that they unite as a partner, and between the two of them you create something which is called yesh me'ayin, which is something from nothing. In other words, like this. Up in the world of Atzilut, as the Alter Rebbe explains here in Tanya, there's something which is called Ila va'alul. Cause and effect. What does that mean, cause and effect? So let me give you an example. Take, for example, you have the Sefirot. So the Sefirot, you have intellect and you have emotions. What is the cause and what is the effect? So for example, when you meditate on something, God, godliness, no, you're excited about God, right? So you meditated and you got excited. What's the cause? What's the cause?
The brain.
The brain, the intellect.
Okay, yeah.
So the meditation is the cause. What's the effect? The feeling, the excitement. So in other words, Chachma, in this case, in this example, is the cause, and the midot, the emotions, are the effect. Now, is Chachma hidden from the emotions, or is Chachma revealed in the emotions?
Revealed.
Revealed. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the excitement. So in other words, any time you have a process of Ila va'alul, cause and effect, the effect will recognize that it comes from the cause. Very simple. Let's say you get excited about something, and then all of a sudden you lose interest. What happens to the excitement? It goes away. Yeah. What does that mean? That means that the reason why you're excited is because of the cause of the meditation. The meditation wears off. Guess what? The excitement goes away. So you have to go back and start meditating again. Now, take for example, and I'll give you another physical example. You have the sun. The sun gives off the beautiful ray of light. Now, when you look at the ray of light, so what's the cause? The cause is the sun. What's the effect? The ray. So what happens when you look at the ray? You know there's a cause. Anytime there's a cause and effect, when you look at the effect, you know what the cause is. Like in the ray, you see there's a sun. In the emotions, you know there was meditation. Okay. Now, and even with any level of tzimzumim, which means there's a process. You know, intellect goes into emotions. If it would remain intellect, would you be excited? No. No, there has to be a tzimzum where it switches and it gets, transformed from an intellect to emotion. Just like, for example, if the sun itself came down here, would you have a ray? There's a process where it tones down. The further you go away from the sun, the less strong it is, and the more of the ray there is. So, but nevertheless, there's still a connection. Now, that's what all in Ila va'alul. So in the world of Atzilut, the light and the vessels is all what? Ila va'alul. Meaning to say is even though this is a light and this is a vessel, but since it's the process of Ila va'alul, so in the vessel you feel the light, in the light you feel godliness, and therefore in the vessel, in the vessels of Atzilut, you feel that what is a God in the world. So in other words,
cause and effect.
Cause and effect. So in other words, in the world of Atzilut, the light feels as a God, and then the vessels feels as a God. Here comes the major shift. Here comes the major shift. And this is called the tzimzum harishon, the first major tzimzum, which happens, again, there's other tzimzum too, but we're talking about the major tzimzum between the world of Atzilut and bariah. The world of Atzilut, what is it called? Eitzel. Eitzel means it's close to. That means in the world of Atzilut, you still, even in the vessels, you recognize the God. As Eitzel, it's close to you, still recognize it's close to God. Bariah means what? Creation. Bariah means creation. In other words, what's creation? Creation means an independent identity. It's an independent identity, which basically means, where did you come from? I made myself. I made myself. That
I made myself. Who is I in this?
Whoever it is. It could be me, you. It could be at any level in the world from Bria to Asiya. Any time there is a creation, someone says, I made myself. Any adult or teenager or child. It's mine, right? I did it. I made it. The I.
No good.
Oh, no judgment. It's all good. Why no good? It's all good. So,
because it's from God.
To eliminate the I.
I get it. That's another class for itself.
Okay.
Now we're in the world of Kabbalah. But right. Yes, okay. Now, here we go. So, how could you have a creation where someone says, I exist on my own? Ila va'alul, cause and effect, can never make that happen. Cause and effect can never make that happen. Why? Because you wouldn't say, I am. By default, if you're an effect of a cause, and you recognize you're an effect of a cause, it's not a creation. Oh, so the process that's called I am, there had to be a process not of Ila va'alul, but a process which is called Bria, which is a creation, but that process that created the bria is called yesh me'ayin. Yesh me'ayin means there's a something that came from nothing. Which, when we say something from nothing, means that any time there's the process of creation, that means, yes, I am, I exist, and therefore I'm not recognizing where I came from. There's no cause and effect. I made myself, it's all mine, etc. That is the process called yesh me'ayin. Two different processes. In other words, İlah ועלול will keep you connected to your source. Yesh me'ayin will keep you disconnected from your source. So in the world of Atzilut, the process is called what? İlah ועלול. And therefore in the world of Atzilut, whether it's the light or the vessel, it still recognizes there's a God. And that's what it means, İהו וחיהו וגרמיהו. However, in the world of bria, that's already the process called of yesh me'ayin. But here's the question. The fact is, take anything in this world, or everything in this world, that exists. I'm not even talking the world of bria. I'm talking the world of Yetzirah, the world of Asiya, right? We're like, hey, it's my world, right? This is mine, my house, my keys, my this, my that. I got it, my idea, all that stuff. Now, let me ask you a question. A truthful question. Do you really think anything and everything you could have without God?
No.
No. The truth is, right, without God you have nothing. Okay. Not only that, God says, kula kamei kla chashiv. In reference, from God's perspective, we don't even exist. Kula kamei, right, everything in front of God, it's like nothing. It's like nothing. It's like it doesn't exist. So how do we say that we exist? So, this is important to know. The author explains like this. There's two perspectives. There's the view from above and the view from below. The view from above is we're nothing. God's real and we're nothing. We convince ourselves and God's laughing. Right? What's the expression? Man plans and God laughs. So the view from above, we're nothing. We're nothing. But that's God's view. But then we always have, there's two sides to every story. Then there's the view from below. The view from the below is, our perspective is, hey, I exist, we're real, God, ayin, God's nothing. We are the yesh, and God's nothing. Oh, yeah. So what does that mean? What does that mean you say God's nothing? What do you mean you're saying God's nothing? You know without God, why? Very simple. When we use the term ayin means nothing. What does it mean when we say God's nothing? When do you say God's nothing? So the Alter Rebbe explains very simple. There's two reasons why you say God's nothing. Not in a negative way. I just don't comprehend it. I just don't comprehend this God. I comprehend, I think you told me, sushi, some steak, right? Some French fries. You guys are laughing. You know, a nice vacation. I comprehend and appreciate physical things. This spirituality, godliness, I don't know. I don't get it.
The Florida climate.
Huh?
The Florida climate.
Exactly. Exactly. All this stuff, we don't get it. So when we say God is ayin, nothing, we don't mean God doesn't exist. It's very important to know that. We're not saying God doesn't exist. We just don't comprehend it. We just don't get it.
With our finite mind.
With our finite mind. Our finite mind says that we exist. Our reality, our needs and wants and drives exist. And God, we just don't comprehend it. That's point number one. And that's why we call it ayin. Another reason why we call it ayin is very simple. I'm going to give you an example. Under the floor here, we see carpet. But underneath the carpet is what? Cement. Okay. We're going to take a journey now. Not physically, but let's take a journey for a moment and meditate right now that we're in the world of the cement. Could you meditate that we are now in the cement? Okay. We're in the cement. And you're having a conversation with a piece of cement. And you say to the piece of cement, I want you to explain to me something intellectually. Could the cement do that to you? Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
I just had this conversation yesterday.
Oh, no. No, what did the cement tell you? No, honestly, I'm not making a joke. I'm just trying to give you a mashal, an example. Do you think the cement can explain to you something intellectually?
No.
No. Why? No, why not?
Because it doesn't, I mean,
No intellect.
It has
No
no
chachma.
mind. Yeah, no intellect.
But there are people that would argue on behalf that the cement does have...
What's that? No, again, I get it.
Another class.
Another class. Here's the point, very simple. Because in cement, there is no brain.
Yeah.
There's no brain. It's God created it, but there is no brain. Now, so I'm going to say to you, well, what kind of crazy thing is that the cement doesn't know about intellect? And it just doesn't have it. It's not in the ingredients. When they made cement, they used sand and they used water. Whatever they use to make cement. I don't know.
Silicate.
Silicate. Whatever. There's no brains in there. So when cement refers to intellect, it doesn't exist. And it really doesn't exist in its world. So the same thing also, what does yesh ma'ayin mean? In the I, the arrogant I, God doesn't exist either. Now, whether he does or he doesn't, it's irrelevant from God's perspective. From our perspective is, I exist, God doesn't exist. Now, the proof is, because if not, you wouldn't say I. You would say, what does God have to say? You wouldn't be a whole day, I, right? Why are you saying I? Because by default you're saying I, because you believe that God doesn't exist. You can't have two things in one spot. So yesh me'ayin, so the Alter Rebbe explains there's two reasons why there's something which is yesh me'ayin. One is, because we just don't comprehend it. And therefore it's ayin, doesn't exist. Number two is because it really doesn't exist in our reality. So we exist and God doesn't exist. Right? Okay. Now, that's called what? Bria. So the Alter Rebbe says, now we're going to go deeper. This is heavy stuff. Where does the process of Bria, which means a creation, which is yesh, and God does not exist either because we can't relate, or because it really doesn't exist in our world, where does the process start from? And again, what does it mean Bria means? That means we're independent, disconnected from our source. We're independent, disconnected from our source. So the Alter Rebbe says that begins in the 10 Sefirot of the world of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. In Atzilut, it's Ilah Va'alul. But in this world, Asiya, the world of Yetzira and the world of Bria, in the 10 Sefirot, that's where the yesh starts. And also the Alter Rebbe says that's in the 10 Sefirot, but also, and that's in the vessel of the 10 Sefirot. But also in the light of the 10 Sefirot, there's different levels. The Sefirot have levels. Just like our soul has 5 levels, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. So in the light of the Sefirot, on the level of Nefesh and Ruach, it means even in the soul, in the light of the Sefirah, on the level of Nefesh Ruach, that's also where yesh exists. So where's this yesh of the 10 Sefirot of the world of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, and even the light of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya in the Nefesh Ruach part, where does that come from? So that gets created from the neshama of the light. So even in the light, from the neshama of the light, which neshama of the light of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. So the neshama of the light of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, and that comes from the level of malchut of Atzilut. And the Alter Rebbe explains, very fascinating, that where does the light come from? It comes from the neshama, which comes from malchut of Atzilut. Now we know every one of the sefirot have how many sefirot into it? There's 10 sefirot, but every one of the sefirot are intertwined one with the other. So Malchut of Atzilut have how many in there? 10. There's 10, all 10. Now, but there's also another concept in Kabbalah, which again, we're just going to touch upon different points tonight, where every single sefira is made up of 3 compartments. What's the 3? Roish, Toich, and Soif, the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning and the end. So the Alter Rebbe uses the term that it comes from the 30 sefirot of Malchus of Atzilut, which comes into the neshama of the light of the sefirot in these 3 worlds, and from there it creates the beginning of the yesh. We're in the nefesh ruach of the light of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, and also into the kelim, the vessels of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, of the sefirot of Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Now, So now he's defining you where you have yesh. Now, obviously in Kabbalah there's many, many levels. When we're talking about yesh, a existence, what did we say before? Yesh hanivra. Bria, that's created. Created means independent identity. I'm created, I exist. Where does that start? As the Alter Rebbe explains. But the Alter Rebbe is making a disclaimer to know that the fact is that in the world of Atzilut, there is also a yesh, but not a yesh hanivra that was created, but yesh hanetzal, a yesh of the world of Atzilut, not bria yesh me'ayin, but there's a concept of yeshus over there. What are they? They're called the hechalot, which are the chambers that come out of Atzilut. Also, for example, igulim. Igul means it circles around the world of Atzilut, so it's not so close where it recognizes God as the true power. Also, for example, the bodies and the angels, which are not humbled, like in the process of Ila Va'alul, because in the process of Ila Va'alul, what is the cause and effect? So the effect recognizes the cause, but they are like Yesh Ma'ayim. But again, the world of Atzilut, and again, that's the concept called Yesh Hanetzal, which again is another whole. I mean, obviously, every one of these things we can talk about for hours. I'm just touching upon the points the author is making, that even though we mentioned before that Yesh starts in the world of Bria, but there is a concept of Yesh in the world of Atzilut. Now, then the Alter Rebbe explains, very, very powerful. This is really, really, really very, very interesting. That there's souls, there are souls, and there are angels that are created from a concept which is called zivug. Right? Zivug is a when what's a zivug? Male and female get together. There's a shidduch. They come together. So there's different levels of connecting. So there's a concept in Kabbalah called zivug, a connection of neshikin. Neshikin means a kiss. What does that mean? It's a very, very spiritual connections. Very, very spiritual connections. And that's neshamot, souls, and also angels that come out of that union. There's also human souls that come out from also a zivug, a relationship of Zer Ampim, which is a small face, and Nukva, we're in the world of Atzilut. But think about it like this. Again, let's go back. The world of Atzilut, is it a godly world or is it a Yesh world? It's a godly world. Where did Yesh start? Afterwards, in the world of Bria. So if there's a union that takes place in the world of Atzilut, Zivug Neshikin, Zer Ampin and Nukfin and so on and so forth, and as a union takes place. That union, even though it's the emotions, the intellect, etc., and the malchut, and so, they're all uniting, and it creates a soul. Because you can elevate yourself to the world of Atzilut as well, if you realize everything is God. So these souls that come out from that union, what kind of souls are they going to be? Huh? They're going to be godly. They're going to be godly souls. Like, for example, Moshe Rabbeinu was called the Neshama of Atzilut. That means his union took place in the world of Atzilut, and on a soul level, on a deep level, what was real? Godliness. So how did he make it down to this world? So obviously there's something which is called a tzimzumim, contraction of the light. There's the kav where it comes down, and again, every one of these terms we can talk about for hours. There's a kav where it comes down through a finite type of experience that it comes down, and that's how it creates. It's able to exist in a finite reality. But the source of the connection is we're in the world of Atzilut. Now, because they're so holy, and to them, what is natural? God and godliness. Right? God and godliness. So what happens is, the Alter Rebbe explains, if you have a soul from Atzilut, and God forbid, they sin. What does that mean, they sin? What does it mean? What is the definition of a sin? A sin means you're not doing what God wants.
Is that possible in Atzilut?
No. In Atzilut, for sure not. But the soul that was created in the world of Atzilut, that came down to this world, but on a soul level, the neshama is the level of Atzilut. It only, on a soul level, can connect to God and godliness. Anything that's not God, you can't handle. So what happens? God forbid, if it sins, or it's exposed to sin,
God is crying.
what happens to the soul? You know what happens to the soul? The soul literally leaves the body. It just can't handle it. It can only handle God and godliness. Think about it. Look how powerful that is. Yeah. Sometimes you have very, very delicate and refined souls. It's not a judgment or anything. They just physically can't. If something's not God, they just can't handle it. They just can't again, I don't want to get into the stories, but the stories where holy people, like if you give them something which is non-kosher, and let's say you try to trick them. Matter of fact, there's a famous story in the war where there was no food to eat, and there was only tray food. So I know who would happen to it. They gave him they told him it was kosher, and they gave him tray food. He couldn't eat it. He couldn't eat it. Why couldn't he? He wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a prophet, but obviously he was a very holy soul, and if it wasn't godly, it was like he couldn't handle it. So a soul that's in the level of Atzilut, you know what happens? Anything that's not godly, you can't handle it. And God forbid if he sins, his soul just leaves his body. Isn't that powerful? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to be in that level? Yeah. That the only thing you're really connected to is something which is God and godliness. And if it's not, it's like you're not attracted to anything which doesn't call out for godliness. Isn't that powerful? Yeah. But on the other hand, as powerful as these souls are, you're going to say these are souls in the world. How come they can't create something from nothing? Because obviously it's not Ein Sof. Remember, it's only a soul that came into a body, and so on. It's not that powerful. Now,
but something from nothing is made only created only by God.
I'm sorry, what? Because something, right, exactly. Because something from nothing can only come through Ein Sof. Yeah. And so it can only come through the Ein Sof. But here's the question. If it can only come through Ein Sof, so why do you need the light and the vessels in the world of Atzilut? If God creates something from nothing, what's the whole idea? If we're saying that the light and the vessels in the world of Atzilut, it's all one with God, so what does God need that for? And the answer is very simple. Because God is Ein Sof. The power to create something from nothing comes from Ein Sof. But the fact is, in this world, there's different levels. There's Chachma, there's Bina, there's Das, there's Chesed, there's all the Sefirot. So in order to create the Midot in this world, they have to be formulated and shaped in the highest level. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says, the Zohar says, íhu, v'chiהו, íhu, וגרמיהו, because the infinite life of God is the powerful light that creates something from nothing, but it goes through the Sefirot, both the light and the vessel, so that when it breaks through into this world, there is already a potential to have the Sefirot in different levels. Now, but so it goes through all the Sefirot, but here's the process. So we have all the Sefirot, 10 Sefirot. Whether you start from Keser, let's start with Keser. Keser, Chachma, Bina, then you skip Das, Chesed, Gur, Tferes, that's a Chod Yisod Malchut. So you have the Ein Sof light. The first level it reaches is Keser. Keser, because it's an intermediary, even in the world of Atzilut, between Sefirot and the infinite light, so Keser is a bridge. Meaning to say is it has a component of infinite in there, and it has a component already a finite where it can start creating Sefirot. It goes through all the 10 Sefirot, and then it comes into the final Sefira. What's the final Sefira? The final Sefira is Malchus. Now, Malchus is also a very powerful Sefira. Why? Because Malchus takes all the infinite light and all the different variations of the infinite light in the world of Atzilut, and it breaks through and creates in the world of Bariah the first Sefira of Keser, and we actually call it Atik, the Bariah. You know, Keser is two parts. There's Atik. What does Atik mean? Atik means, on a practical level, it's called Tainug, which is deep pleasure. So it's the first deep pleasure that we can say, oh, I love this. Obviously in the world of Bariah, we're not even talking in the world of Asiyah. So the first part of Keser is where it's enjoyment, which actually from there comes Ratzon, my will, and from there it plays out through all the Sefirot. Now, so the first Sefira actually that creates the Yesh, even though it actually gets born in the world of Bria, is actually Malchus of Atzilut already has a component where it creates the Rish. Why is that? Why is that? Very simple. Because we know that Ein Melech B'loi Am. In order to be a king, you need to have an Am. What does an Am mean? An Am means a nation and someone that's independent. For example, could Chachma be a king over Bina and Das and the emotions? No, it's part of it. The only way you can be a king if you create something new and totally different. Who creates that something new? Malchus creates that, and therefore could be the king over the next level. Now, Malchus actually, the Alter Rebbe says, has another expression which is called the revealed world. Why? Because and here's a big chiddush in what the Alter Rebbe is saying here in this chapter, because we know we have the concealed world, revealed world. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is that Malchus is called revealed. Why? Because let's start with the infinite light of God, and then you have all the different levels of light. So all the different levels of light is coming from different levels. Ilah is coming one from the next. In order to create something from nothing, who's the only one that can create something from nothing?
God.
God. Why? Because since God came from nothing, He created Himself. So therefore God has the power to create something from nothing. So where is something from nothing? Where is something from nothing? Where is that nothing? No, the opposite way. From God is the real something. We're the nothing. We're the something from the nothing. Where is God mainly revealed? In the higher levels or the lowest level?
Higher. The lowest.
In the lowest. In the lowest.
Yes.
So since God is found in the lowest level, so Malchus is called the revealed world. Because Malchus has the power to reveal God because he's bringing out the most deepest part of God. That's why the Alter Rebbe brings down another important Kabbalistic idea, which is called Na'utz Tchilasim B'Seifon, which means like this. The Alter Rebbe explains like this. There's something which is called Rosh, right? What's Rosh? The beginning. Rosh is the beginning. Chachma is the beginning of the sefira, right? But then there's something tchilasim, which means it's even before the head. What's before Chachma? The infinite light of God. So notes tchilasim, where is the infinite light of God found? Specifically where? B'Seifon, all the way at the end. We're in this physical world. In other words, the fact that God was able to create something from nothing and something exists, it's because it's rooted back into the beginning in the infinite light of God. So what's interesting is that in Kabbalah it says that we have two things God gave us. God gave us Mitzvot to do, and God gave us Torah to study. Now, in the Sefirot, you have something which is called Arich Ampin, which is a very high level, and then you have the level of Chacham, which is the beginning of the Sefirot. Torah, where's Torah rooted in? Chachma, right? It's God's wisdom. Where's the Mitzvot? All the way in Keser and Arich Ampin, right? God's will. So in other words, in its source, what's higher? A mitzvah or Torah in the source?
It's got to be Torah.
Mitzvahs are higher. It's from Arich, from Keser. Torah is from where? From Chachma, in the source. That's where it comes from. But then the bottom line is when
Chachma was the highest.
It's the highest in the Sefirot, but Arich is higher. It comes from Keser, which is higher than Chachma. So in the source, mitzvot are higher. But then we know that if you have God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, so the last Hey resembles what? Which is the last Hey, the lowest levels mitzvot in this world. The Vav resembles what? Torah. So you see, what's interesting is that in the source, mitzvot is the highest. In reality, mitzvot is the lowest. In the source, Torah is second, and in reality, Torah doesn't reach that low. So it's the same idea, that the tchilasa, the beginning, which is the mitzvah, the source, where it's coming from, goes down, what? To the lowest level. Okay, but now, here's very important. So now that says 1 second. What did we just learn? We learned the highest, the lowest, great. Where did the bria start? Where did creation start? It started in the world of bria, which is after the world of Atzilut. If there's a tzimzum, what does a tzimzum mean? It created a cutoff so that you can have a creation, so that we can exist and we can say the big I, right? So what are you saying God's down here? How does that work? Is God here? He's not here. If he's here, so why isn't he revealed? And if he's not here, so if he's not here, why are we saying God's here in the lowest level? What does that mean practically? Okay, so here the Alter Rebbe goes through a very, very heavy Kabbalistic journey. We'll accomplish much as we can tonight into the way that tzimzum works. And he says like this. In the world of Atzilut, we said what? It's ilah ועלול, which means says God's presence felt throughout the world of Atzilut. Once bria, then there's a huge tzimzum, and then starting bria, I exist. I exist, yes, from something, right? Doesn't exist in my mind, I can't relate to it, ayin, it's nothing. The way we see it. But nevertheless, even though there's a cutoff there, there's a huge separation, a huge mechitza, right, a real mechitza. But nevertheless, Alter Rebbe explains that the kav is a line. This line pierces through the mechitza. A line from the infinite part of God pierces through. Now, this is key, because through this line comes through heavy electricity. And this heavy electricity comes through on different levels. In other words, there's different levels. One is, the Alter Rebbe explains, something which is called igulim. What is igulim? What does igulim mean? It's a circle. What does it mean, a circle? It's all over equal. That's a very, very powerful level, but it's not internalized. Igul means that it comes through, but it's all around. Then there's something which is called, now because it does not internalize, it could be the same all over. Very powerful, but it's not internalized. Then there's something which is called a kav. A kav means a line. A line means that there's a flow of energy, which is a straight line, but it gives differently to you, to him, to her, and so on and so forth. That means every single world gets based on it as much as it can handle. Obviously, there's greater light in the world of Yetzira, of Bria, less in the Yetzira, and less in the world of Asiya, and so on and so forth. Now, but then the Alter Rebbe goes through and he explains in depth that there's three different levels of way this light that pierces through the tzimzum, which is called, through the kav, and he explains like this. One is, he says, and he calls it ha'ara. Ha'ara means what? Like a ray that comes through. So the first level, it's called a ha'ara. It's a ray that comes through. What does that mean? It's not the essence of the light of it. The essence came through, then this world will be less like Atzilut. However, it has the same mahus. It's the same quality, but not the essence of it. And that's one level that comes through. Then there's another level he calls it a ha'ara of a ha'ara. There's a ray of the kav, obviously. And this he calls not already the mahus, the same quality, but it has the mitziyut, the same components and so on and so forth, obviously toned down. And then he said that it can handle, exactly. And then he said there's something which is called a ha'ara, the ha'ara, like three levels down where it's totally refined. And that's actually not the metzias of the light, but it's actually the metzias of the nivra, of the creation, how much we, recognize as existence. How much we recognize as existence. Now, what's interesting is, so it gets toned down, remember, igulim, yosher, ha'ara, until it comes down to the lowest physical part of the world, which again, the lowest physical part of the world means the physical part of the world. Literally, I gave the example before in the cement, or the earth and the ground, or in us physical human beings.
What it can handle. Right.
But in the lowest part, through this kav, you know what comes through there? That again, it's revealed different levels, etc. But where it totally explodes, where the Ein Sof comes back and is totally revived. There's a concept in Kabbalah called Chayzer. What does that mean? You have the light comes down, right? It's coming down, and what do they call in English? You hit a bottom. Now what happens when you hit the bottom? Usually when you hit the bottom,
The only way is go up.
So again, why is that? Here's the point. So the Alter explains, not because the only way to go is up. Because when you hit the bottom, no. So here's the different point. That's true, but because there's something magical that the light from the highest levels gets revealed in the bottom.
Oh.
You see, it's not... Simple thing is, where else could you go? No. The point is that when you hit the bottom, it creates a certain energy where it literally somehow magically pulls in from the original source the most powerful light to the lowest level. As we see, the Alter is very simple. You take the earth, and you go ahead and you put a seed in there, and you water it, and you plant the ground. What happens? Trees are growing out. Yeah. Think of when Hashem originally created the world, who created that the earth should give forth fruit and trees and so on? Only God can do it. Here today, every one of us, and some of us actually do it, in our backyard, you plant some seeds, and also you have tomatoes and potatoes and oranges and bananas and papaya. Whoa! How did that happen? From the earth. From the earth.
It's pretty incredible.
It's incredible. Why? Because in the lowest places, you know what's there? The koyach ha'ein soif, the infinite part of God, is in the lowest places. Now, as you see, when you plant, you can plant. You can have different types of fruits and trees and different types of tastes and so on and so forth, because you can actually create literally something from nothing. Because you see, even the seed itself rots. And not only that, even when you finish growing the crop from one season, boom, you start growing again the next season.
This is the first class that I've actually made me hungry.
Okay, get down on the earth and you'll find plenty of food there.
You said light is revealed at the bottom. And
yes, yes. And that's why we know that when God created the world, there's 4 different levels of energy. Doimim, inanimate. Tzimeach, things that grow. Chai, things that are alive. And medaber, things that speak. Now, the reality is that, think about the medaber. All of us here, what do you say you want to go eat? Why you eating food is from a lower source of energy or a higher source? A lower source. A lower source. Yeah. But why are you going to a lower source from getting energy? Why don't you go to a higher source? And the answer is because in the lower source, there's actually a higher energy that's buried in there. And you're actually looking for the godly energy in that thing you're going to eat. I don't know what you're going to eat. Don't tell us, but whatever you're going to eat, there's some godly energy in there. Hidden in that lower thing.
I'm improving my diet. You wouldn't be disappointed.
I'm not disappointed at all. Not only that, we all know that it says that a child, according to Talmud and Kabbalah, cannot start speaking until he starts eating. Think about that. When they start talking, when they start eating. Why is that? Because when they start eating food, which is a lower source, that actually affects their brain. It affects their brain. Everyone knows if you don't eat and you don't drink, what happens to your brain? But the brain is higher than the food. But the answer is you need that. And there's a famous story in the Talmud where Rabbah asked Rabbi Nachman a question. Right? He asked him a question. So Rabbi Nachman says, I'll tell you the answer tomorrow. Goes home, he had a nice steak dinner, fatty piece of meat, and he comes the next day and he gives him the answer. He says, why didn't you give me the answer yesterday? It's a beautiful answer, it's very simple. Because when you asked me the question, I was hungry, I was tired, I was a little malnourished, I went home, I ate some food, and now I have the answer. What does that mean? And the answer is again, because we, as great as we are, we need our energy from the lowest places. That's another reason why, for example, think about the temple, right? The temple. People came and prayed, they meditated, right? And they sang songs. What was the main service in the temple? They would take physical sacrifices, animals, and they'd bring it as a sacrifice. Why? Because in the sacrifice that we might think is a lower level, that's where the greatest energy is. And we have to go there to elevate that energy. And here the Alter Rebbe brings it back. Come inside, we're finishing up. Here the Alter Rebbe brings it back full circle. Full circle, and he says like this. That is why, as we started the class, mitzvot, physical mitzvot are so important. Because in the physical food that we go shopping for, right, to make Shabbos, and all the high that you use, you make your tefillin, or the mezuzah, or any other physical mitzvah that you do, in that physical thing is the most powerful infinite energies from the Ein Sof light. And that's why it says in the Torah to come, welcome, come inside. Torah says, the verse Deuteronomy tells us, Hayoim la'asayisam. Today our job is to do mitzvot. Why? Because when Mashiach comes, you're not going to have to do physical mitzvot. Or it's like it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, and we'll finish off on this with the Alter Rebbe finishes. The Alter Rebbe finishes off and he says like this: Yafa sha'achas b'tshuva ma'asin tovim ba'olam hazeh mikol chai olam. Anything, all the great luxuries of the world to come, there's nothing greater than what? Doing mitzvot in this world. Why? Because when you do mitzvot in this world, you reach, obviously, the greatest places. So you see why this chapter in Tanya, Peir Chap, is so powerful. Because the Alter Rebbe shows you why, literally, physically doing mitzvot, you're connecting to the greatest power. So with all the different levels, and tzimzumim, and the higher levels and lower levels, but Ein Sof obviously is the highest. Where is Ein Sof found on the strongest level in this physical world? In physical things, and that's why doing mitzvot is key and so important, because by doing the mitzvah, you're connecting with the infinite light of God.